I was gonna say the Kings are rolling because I genuinely think, and James, this is where your recall of Kings games will come into play.
Okay.
I personally can't remember a win for the Kings outside of game 6 of the playoffs last year. That was very impressive. But a regular season game where I've been more impressed with Sacramento.
Then the game
Damien's here.
that we just saw against Minnesota?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
That was their let me phrase it this way. That was their best regular season win since
okay. Maybe
When?
last season?
What game though?
Man. I don't know. Like again, games for me, they always run in together,
Okay.
right? So I mean, I think the Kings have had impressive wins even like this season, where you get done with that win, you're like, oh, okay. That was, they had this stretch where they like 3 out of 4 games were wire to wire finish, wire to wire like wins. They just won 6 in a row, 6 in a row, right? So there's some great games mixed in there where you're like, hey, they handled a really, really difficult opponent. Um, but like overall, you're always looking for a team to build on what they're doing and show you something else. And especially after losing 2 games the way they did, like the Pelicans games, the first one was like horrendous. The second one, like it was a much better game. And actually I gave them props and people didn't like that I gave them props. Like sometimes you get beat. Sometimes you're on the road in a long road trip and you just flat out you get beat.
Yep.
So, I don't know, Kyle. Like the Oklahoma City Thunder win to me was a really good win. The Cavs win was a really good win. The Mavericks win, where they went in, they outlasted a team that was on the second night of a back-to-back. So I think when I look at the Minnesota win, like you beat a team while 2 of their stars were going off. And that's a really good sign. If you can hang with a team that's not having like a bad night, you're just better. You're just a better team overall. Like you're hitting your shots, you're doing what it is that you need to do, and you're playing without one of your best players in Keegan Murray. Like I just think that was one of the more complete games. And I also like if we look at these last 2 games, I think it just really shines a light on how good Trey Lyles is, how much Trey Lyles means to this team, how much you can build off of what Trey Lyles is bringing to the table, and how, that's the direction that this team needed. That's a player that this team needed. Like they still need more. They still need a long athletic defender or 2. They still need, a shot blocker, true shot blocker.
Yeah.
But like you can see right away that, Sasha Vezenkov has held down the fort and they've been okay. But Trey Lyles is just at a different level.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. I don't know. I feel like we just didn't talk about his absence enough. Like just in it, maybe just I didn't, but that felt like like that's a major cog for them that I just did not. I didn't factor that in enough.
I think a lot of people were surprised when he signed a 2-year, like $16 million deal. People are like, Trey Lyles at $8 million a year. You just didn't watch him play last year. There was, like more than 10 games where the Kings would not have won if it weren't for Trey Lyles.
Well, and so I understood he's like a fine player.
Yeah.
But they are just so different with him on the court.
Yeah. Having
Like
a stretch 4, stretch 5 that's reliable, that doesn't make mistakes, that rebounds, that, right now he's not going to keep shooting 46% from 3. He can if he wants, but especially
not gonna argue with him.
He's shooting like 6.3 3-pointers per game. That's crazy. Like not only is he hitting, but he's taking them.
Yeah.
Like if all of a sudden he's averaging 6 threes a game, this team's going to be around 45 threes a game. Man. And so I don't know, it just adds that other player that does so many things. And again, not to like take away from Sasha, who I think has had some good games and some bad games early on, but it shows you the difference with Trey Lyles. And I always said my personal thought was that if Sasha could be as good as Trey, then, that would be like a really good thing. And I got to be honest, I don't think he is. I think Trey's
No, I'd be shocked if he got there.
yeah, he's a more rounded player. Is he the flat out sharpshooter? Maybe not, but that doesn't mean to me, Trey Lyles is a very, very important piece to what the Kings are doing.
Trey Lyles falls in the class of player to me. And I'm not, just follow me here.
Yeah.
Trey Lyles that is in the class of player to me that is fine, but can swing a finals game where, hey, the Kings won the finals in 6 games, but the series turned in game 3 when Trey Lyles had 27 points and hit 5 threes.
Yeah, I would put Trey Lyles in like one of those weird categories that you don't really. So, like, if you're building out a team and like you're the Golden State Warriors, like Trey Lyles isn't Andre Iguodala, but he might be Sean Livingston.
Sean Livingston. I can't remember his 2016. So those finals don't exist. But it was game 1 or 2. He had like 25 points. I think it was game 1.
Yeah, so it's him or it's like a David West. It's those pieces that are so incredibly valuable that you don't really like understand how good they were until they're gone. And even that's where, the one season where the Warriors just completely went in the tank after they won a championship, or they lost a championship, right? And then
they lost in 2019, and then 2019-20 was the
and it wasn't
Steph got hurt and they won 15 games here.
Yeah, they still had a bunch of players, but what they didn't have was any of the depth. And even when they tried to rebuild the depth and they won the championship the other 2 years ago, it was still suspect. I mean, Nemanja Bjelica played a huge role on that team all the way through the season. He wasn't big late, but it was that type of depth that wasn't even at the same tier that you had before. And I thought that they wouldn't have a chance because they didn't have the same type of role players. And again, Trey Lyles, to me, like, be a star in your role. And I think he understands that, which is why I think we made him our Jiffy Lube player of the game for the New Orleans game.
We did. That did happen.
No fanfare.
No, like, that was great work by you to fit that in. I wasn't even paused. I wasn't even ready for that. So Trey Lyles, shout out. Congratulations to him. That's his first Jiffy Lube fast break player of the game win. So Trey Lyles wins. That means you, the listener, wins. So go to ESPN1320.com. Right there at the front, there's a Jiffy Lube contest page. You can't miss it. You click on that. You enter the code word Trey.
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 Trey Day.
Trey.
Just Trey.
It's Trey. Enter that as the code word, and you will be entered for a chance to win a $100 Jiffy Lube gift certificate. We're giving away one after every single game, which means 2 games while we are gone. We'll have another player of the game for you coming up a little bit later. But your first one is Trey. So get to ESPN1320.com right now. Get to the Jiffy Lube contest page and enter that keyword for your chance to win a $100 Jiffy Lube gift certificate. Shout out Trey Lyles.
Shout out Trey Lyles. Trey Lyles, everybody. Trey Lyles.
The reason I brought up the Minnesota game and why it was so impressive to me was just like, man, this is best on best. This is Kings really good offense. Minnesota, best defense in the league right now. And they're holding opponents this year to 43.1% from the field. The Kings shot 49% from the field. From 3, the Kings shot, where are we at? 48.6% from 3.
On how many attempts?
On 35. So they're 17 of 35.
Yeah.
Minnesota holding teams to 33% from 3 this year. And the Kings just kind of, and was Jaden McDaniels out? Like, yeah. And is he a good defender? For sure. But he is not accounting for 8 and 13 percentage points.
No.
Like, that's just it. The Kings are just, I didn't think they had no chance. I thought they could definitely go in and win. And if they wound up being better than Minnesota at the end of the year, I wouldn't be shocked at all. In fact, I would probably bet on it. But for this game, where it's game 6 of a 6-game road trip, and you've lost 2 in a row, and it's this really good, big defensive team, and to just go in and handle them the way they did, it was like, okay. Like, I'm not shocked by the Kings beating any team. I think they can literally beat any team in the NBA, whether it's the Timberwolves, the Nuggets, the Sixers, or otherwise. But Celtics. I'll throw the Celtics in there. But how thoroughly they dominated Minnesota on the last game of a 6-game trip, and the urgency that they played with, knowing that, like, dude, you can't lose 3 in a row. You don't want to go home on a sour note where all of a sudden your 6-game road trip turns into a 3-3 trip after you started 3-0. And just the fact that they go in and kick ass like that I was blown away. And I can't remember the last time I left a Kings game that, like, impressed.
Okay. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And I would even point out, like, I'm not a big complain about the officials guy. The officials were so embarrassing. Like, the Kings took 11 free throws. Minnesota took 29. And you could say, well, the Kings shot a bunch of three-pointers. No, the Kings shot 35 threes. They shot 33. 35 to 33. Both teams took a bunch of threes. Not even that many per modern NBA standards.
Sure.
The fact that they couldn't get a foul call and that some of these free throws that they do have showed up in the final minute or 2 of the game.
Yes, six of their 11 free throws came in the final 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment.
That's so bad.
What we saw was an absolute embarrassment. I think it was Mark Davis that had, like, so many bad calls. And maybe I'm wrong. One of the 2 games here, Mark Davis had a bunch of bad calls, but De'Aaron Fox got teed up, complaining about the officiating. And it just felt like every time that Anthony Edwards got anywhere near the basket, just like the same exact thing with Zion Williamson. Anytime Zion got anywhere, they called a foul. And I know the Kings are trying to be aggressive. They're aggressive. There's no way that De'Aaron Fox didn't get fouled more than like 3 or 4 times, which is what 6 free throw attempts is.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. It's absolutely wild. And for them to just elevate, Domantas Sabonis fouled out of that game. Like, for the Kings to be able to maintain while playing against a very good team and having no calls go their way at all, I thought showed great composure, great ability to get through adversity.
Yep.
And at the same time, I mean, even Mike Brown, like, reviewed a call and was right. And you could tell, I think it is Mark Davis that called that game. He didn't even want to say it. You could see the look on his face was like, after review, the call has been overturned. Like, it was an embarrassment.
Yeah.
And so
it was very, very bad.
Yeah, very, very lopsided. And again, I'm not someone who comes on and complains about officiating all the time. I'm not someone. It's not usually part of my 6 quick thoughts. Nothing.
I'm the same way. I am always. I get crap from people on this all the time. When there's a bad call at the end of the night, at Niners Browns this year, there were 2 calls in the last drive that didn't go the Niners' way. There was a Tayshaun Gibson roughing, and then there was a really ticky-tack holding on Trevarius Ward.
Okay.
And I'm always of the mind, like, hey, don't be in a spot where the official decides the game.
Yes.
That is always where I land on officials. Like, they're there. There's going to be good calls. There's going to be bad calls. And my thought on it is, over the course of a year, the good and bad calls, for the most part, even out. Whether you want to believe that or not, that's, if you objectively watched the game, that's probably where you would land. That's about 50-50. But then there are games like what happened in Minnesota where you see Anthony Edwards on one end getting every touch foul. And then you see De'Aaron Fox on the other end going pinball between 3 defenders and getting nothing.
Or having Anthony Edwards run up and slam into him in the backcourt. Fox, flop a little bit, sell it.
Embellish the call, of course.
Looked like, are you going to call it? Because you didn't call it on the other end.
Right.
You called me on the other end for a touch foul. That's not a touch foul, what just happened. And nothing. And that's when he got the tech. He got a tech after that sequence right there. And I just want to point out, the Kings won by 13. I felt like in that game, the officials and the idea of the end season tournament, it was in the officials' minds that the game was supposed to be close. And it didn't matter what they did. The Kings were still better. And there's nothing Minnesota could do. That should have been a 20-something point blowout.